Welcome to the Daily Ding here on the Athletic NBA Show. I am Jared Weiss. I'm joined by the Athletics Lakers writer Jovan Buha, and Andrew Schlecht is producing the show. We've been doing this writer series throughout the offseason, kind of like sitting down with our writers, finding out not only like what it takes to put a story together, but also like what it's like to put a story together. And you wrote about the biggest star in Los Angeles, the face of Team USA, Austin Reaves. It's called The Meteoric Rise and Newfound Fame of Austin Reaves. Came out August 22nd, which is a week ago from us recording this. I can't believe that August is almost over. Um, but Austin Reaves' career is just starting. And he went from like kind of like if you watch NBA games, you kind of know about this guy, and he's like the fun kind of like rising guy that everyone's into, but no one thinks he's going to be like a serious player in this league, and that's dramatically changed, and yet he doesn't seem to care.
Yeah, and that's where this story starts for me, where you have all this newfound fame and acclaim. You are the Lakers' third best player on a Western Conference Finals run. You have your own sneaker. You're on billboards all across LA. You're even linked to Taylor Swift in dating rumors that were incredibly implausible, but people fell for. And just the fact that you kind of believe that he could potentially be dating Taylor Swift, like that alone to me signified his incredible rise over the past several months. But despite all of that, Austin still has a chip on his shoulder, and that was one of the first questions I asked him when we linked up in Las Vegas when I went out there for Team USA minicamp. Was just, you have all this recent success and all these things coming your way these last few months. Like, how are you maintaining that chip on your shoulder, and how are you maintaining that fuel? And he immediately just goes into all these different slights and not making the Rising Stars challenge and all these just different things that he's been holding on to that are continuing to fuel him. And to him, this is just the beginning. And I know along the way, people are going to continue to doubt him, but he's continually proven all those people wrong. And that's kind of the thing right now that's continuing to fuel him.
But let's start with the beginning of the story, because you did a great job. If you're going to pick anything to lead with, it's you asking him about the Taylor Swift dating rumors and him explaining why I mean, obviously he knew it was bullshit because he would probably remember dating Taylor Swift, but his explanation for why everyone else should have known too was pretty great.
Yeah. So, I had to bring it up. It was the elephant kind of in the room of like, you had this rumor, and he had touched on it a little bit. He did a couple podcasts over the summer where he said it was BS. And I mean, he's in a committed relationship, a committed long-term relationship. So, he's not single, he's not dating. But he said, he's like, I mean, if they had said I was at a golf course, that would have been more realistic. But the fact that they said I was at a bar, even in Arkansas, what was the least plausible part of everything. So I thought that was hilarious. That just kind of summed up Austin. Like, he does not go out. He's a homebody. He spends time with his friends, his family, his girlfriend, and he golfs. He's an avid golfer. He golfs every single day. But besides that, he is not going out. He's not socializing. He's not in any type of scene, even in Arkansas. So the fact that he was supposedly spotted at a bar where Taylor Swift left her Chicago concert to go visit Austin Reaves in a small town in Arkansas where
Sounds
there's a
plausible.
thousand people. Yeah, it was just, yeah, it was ridiculous from the start, but people fell for it. A lot of people believed it. All the celebrity gossip sites ran with it, and it was just hilarious to watch from afar.
I mean, credit to him. He's clearly had the glow up that it's more plausible that he would be dating Taylor Swift than Taylor Swift would fly down to Arkansas to see him.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
they could make a good pair, but he's in a happy relationship. Good for him. But yeah, so then the story, it kind of dovetails into the whole like how Austin's profile has emerged, and now we're seeing him on Team USA. He's playing in the World Cup, and every year Team USA has a guy that you're like, oh, I didn't realize he was valued that highly by the people in the basketball world. And I think Austin's past that point. Like, he was their third best player in a conference finals run last year. I presume you agree, but tell me if you don't.
Yeah,
But
no, for
like,
sure.
I guess what do you think the perception of Reeves is as you're putting this story together? And how do you think this whole Team USA process and the bonds that he's building there is going to affect the way he's viewed over the next few years?
Well, as I've seen on social media and on the Athletic at times, like there are still a lot of people who don't believe in Austin Reaves and believe this is a mirage. He's just an overrated Lakers role player. He's the token white guy, and he's just benefiting from this purple and gold platform that he has. And I think he's proven that's not the case. Basically, from the trade deadline on, he was a 17, 4, and 5 guy with near 50, 40, 90 shooting splits. One of the rare guys who, as he scaled up in terms of usage and workload and role, was able to maintain his efficiency, which, as you know, is really difficult to do. You're doing all that with playing really good perimeter defense for the most part, and in that Golden State series was having to defend Steph Curry after the first couple of games where Golden State was able to play Jared Vanderbilt off the floor. So he was doing it on both sides of the ball. And, so I think there was a lot of skepticism around him making the team. I thought it was deserved, but, looking at some of the names that weren't there, be it a Trae Young, a De'Aaron Fox, a Damian Lillard, like various reasons for those guys not being there. But when you look at a guy like Austin making it over them, it does raise some eyebrows. But for me, the first thing that stood out when I got there and started watching the scrimmages was like, he wasn't just, I want to see like, how's he look? Is he fitting in? Like what's kind of the vibe? And like, it wasn't just that he was fitting in, like he was already within the first couple days of camp in that top 7 or 8 of the rotation, in terms of just how they were deploying him. And he was matched up with Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Brandon Ingram, Mikal Bridges, and holding his own against those guys and scoring on those guys and getting stops against them and like doing the same things that he did in Lakers training camp that got him on the team. Because the origin story was he was a two-way guy, goes to Las Vegas for a players only mini camp that LeBron James was leading. And he played so well that LeBron and AD were just like, this guy has to be on the team. And the Lakers were planning on carrying 14 guys into the regular season. And they had to, like, after LeBron and AD spoke with management, it's like, this guy has to be our 15th player. We cannot just have him on a two-way. So Austin made the team, and from there he's kind of taken off. So I think the Team USA bump is real. If you go back and see guys who are under 25, 26 that play for Team USA, that next year they tend to take a leap. I suspect the combination of Austin going into his third year and playing Team USA will lead to that. But Darvin Ham said this summer he thinks Austin could be an all-star sooner than later. I asked Austin about that. He said that's one of his goals and he thinks it's realistic. So I think that's kind of the next step for him is like you earn a spot in Team USA, you play pretty well, you're in the rotation, and you carry that over. And as LeBron ages, nearing 40, as AD deals with his injuries, like I think there's a realistic shot that Austin Reaves could be like the 5th guard on an all-star team if he assumes higher usage and is a 25 and 5 guy, which I think is rather plausible.
I just love how every Lakers story includes LeBron getting credit for everything happening.
Always.
It's great. I mean, hey, LeBron's one of the great playmakers ever, so I'm not surprised. But that part, it just has to be in the Austin Reaves origin story, which is
It
great.
does.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is great because like you look at how it's one thing to be an underrated player emerging. Like he's a two-way guy. I'm having trouble thinking of other two-way guys that have emerged at this level. And you had this great quote in here where you're talking about how he got snubbed from the Rising Stars Challenge, and he said it's kind of a common theme of my life. And then now you look at him at Team USA, and he's going up against the guys that were like playing in those Rising Stars challenges and starring in them. The idea of him going up against Anthony Edwards and holding his own is amazing, considering Ant is like the face of one of the recent draft classes. And I mean, I feel like all these major market teams, they always have a young guy that's coming up. He's putting up good numbers, and he's like that third guy, and everybody around there thinks he's definitely going to scale into an all-star. It's definitely going to happen, especially when the main guys start to age out and he assumes a role. It doesn't happen a lot of the time. Who knows? Maybe like Jordan Poole in Washington will average 30 a night and he'll make an all-star team. But like it's never really quite happens that way. But there's something about the way Reaves plays and the way he carries himself that I think it's because he's so versatile and because his creativity and his hustle is kind of like the bedrock of how he plays the game, then he just also has developed a good touch and he's able to kind of shoot from like everywhere. kind of has become a three-level scorer and playmaker. It just feels like his ability to mesh in any type of situation is why he works well with the Lakers and why he's in this position with Team USA.
I think you said the perfect word for him is versatility. Like his ability to play on and off the ball. As you said, he got better as a foul drawer, which really some would say foul baiting, and that's maybe a fair criticism if you
What's
really
the
want to get
difference
into
these
the weeds
days?
there. But he referenced studying Trae Young and James Harden, and I know that style of play isn't for everyone, but how many guys can study that style of play and actually implement it, right? Like there's only so many guys. A lot of guys try and foul bait, but Reaves has been able to do it rather successfully, and was consistently getting to the line 5, 6, 7 times a night throughout that second half run. So I think expectations probably need to be tempered a little bit, where it's not like he's the next Larry Bird, and is going to be like a top 5 or 10 guy. He's already 25, so he is a little bit older on the aging curve. Because he ended up playing, 4 years in college, but had to redshirt a year because he transferred. So ended up being in college for 5 years. Came in as a 23-year-old, a little bit older as a rookie. But I do think he has shown one thing with him that's been interesting is like he's really shown month over month growth, which you don't always see from young guys. A lot of times it might be, several months and then there's a progression. With Austin, it's almost been like the comparison I've made is like kind of Spider-Man in the beginning of Spider-Man movies, where he's like he's just toying with different things and kind of figuring it out. Like that's been Austin, where first he grew up playing point guard, but with the Lakers, it was like Russ was there, Rondo was there, Kendrick Nunn, even Taylor Horton Tucker, who the Lakers were high on at that time. So he's like, and that's not even
The good old
mentioning
days.
LeBron. He's like fifth, sixth, seventh in the pecking order in terms of ball handlers playing point guard. So he had to learn more. I got to be this movement shooter. I got to learn how to play kind of the 2-3 hybrid position. And now after the Westbrook trade and over the last several months, like the Lakers finally were like, here are the keys to the offense. Like you run the show. And then he has that game one performance against Memphis, where that's the famous now I'm him viral moment came from that, where the Lakers in their first game of the playoffs on the road, hostile Memphis environment, LeBron's there, AD's there, and they're running their offense through Austin Reaves. And it's Austin Reaves, you go score, and LeBron and AD are going on your back, and you're carrying us to a game one win on the road. So I think with him, I don't know what the ceiling is, because again, like he's just continued to rewrite it every step of the way. And this was a guy, he had 3 college scholarships offers coming out of high school. In college, was not getting the minutes and the role he wanted at Wichita State. So he transfers to Oklahoma, hoping that will help, jumpstart his post college basketball career. Then again, doesn't get drafted, is a two-way guy, has to earn his way days before training camp starts to get a roster spot. Like just along the way, he's always had to prove himself. And so I think all-star, like a couple all-star selections are reasonable, but who knows? Because again, like if you told me Austin Reaves was going to be an all-star 2 years ago, I would have laughed at you, and I would have asked what you were smoking. But now it's like it's possible.
I'm smoking that Austin pack, baby. He's him. He's him.
He
All right,
is.
let's go from a honestly like one of a kind role player success story. Probably not quite, but great role player success story to
Yeah.
not even a bad one, but just kind of the usual role player success story. So talk to me about Troy Brown.
Mm-hmm. So in many ways, Troy Brown and Austin are opposite. Where Troy was a guy with pedigree. Troy was a 5-star recruit. Troy was one of the top guys in his high school class. Was one of the top NBA prospects in his college class, and this was a guy who, good shooter coming up. Uh, had kind of a lanky, versatile, do it all forward who could handle the ball, who could score, who could defend, who could rebound, and play multiple positions and just function in different ways. And for him, going to Washington, there aren't many success stories out of Washington, so it's kind of hard to divorce The start of Troy Brown's career and just the way things have tended to go in Washington. But goes to Washington, has a forgettable rookie season, and finally starts to break out a bit his second year. But ultimately, the Wizards go in a different direction. They draft Rui Hachimura, and they start just and Denny Avia, and just going like, now Troy, you're not the forward of the future. You're like third in the pecking order, and eventually gets traded to Chicago and shows out a little bit as a shooter, but still kind of in that role player mold. So for him, it's really a journey of the battle of what you want to do versus what the league wants you to do. And the NBA is obviously a very competitive space. And if you're not willing to adapt and play a certain role, you're just going to be out of the league. And for him, despite coming up as this guy with pedigree and this high level prospect and thinking of himself as, I can be a number 2 or number 3 option, I can help run an offense. I can be a go-to guy in crunch time. He's had to accept, like, if you're not at a certain level of a shot creator or a ball handler, you kind of get pigeonholed in that 3-and-D mold. And he's 6'6". He is a capable perimeter defender. He is a capable 3-point shooter. So he does check those boxes. But for him, he feels like he has so much more to offer. So there were various times in the Lakers season where they asked him to do more. But even at one point when I was working on the story, I asked Darvin Ham, like, how do you view Troy? How do you view his role on this team? And he's like, well, with Troy, it's simple. He's a 3-and-D guy. And like that, to me, that quote to me was just
Cheers.
so emblematic of Troy's struggle of like, I feel like I can do so much more, but I'm doing what the team is asking me to do. And I think it's lost in the shuffle where a lot of times we remember like the higher profile guys like the James Wisemans or some of these guys that, they fizzle out with their team or their busts or whatever. But basically every guy who's a first round pick for the most part kind of has their own version of this. And there are the very few that break through and are all stars and kind of get the career that they want. But most guys have to settle for a reduced role and embracing that. And with Troy, it was just kind of talking through like, how are you going through this? Because early in the season, he's starting. Then he goes to the bench and kind of falls out of the rotation. Then he starts again, then back to the bench. And like just that yo-yoing of role, expectations, minutes, all those things. And just, I think trying to characterize that as best as I possibly could.
So the story is called Troy Brown Jr. and the Gift and Curse of Surviving as an NBA Role Player. And I mean, you touched on it there, but it was interesting for him saying there's kind of this duality of my versatility and being able to do whatever they ask me to do and being able to change my role constantly is what keeps me in this league. But at the same time, it's also frustrating. And I think we hear this as just covering the NBA from players around teams. Honestly, it really scales all the way up to the top. Usually the superstar that's leading the team doesn't really complain, but everybody else is like, I could take on more of this role. Inconsistency is making it more difficult for me. I've had every single year, I've had role players or people around role players or coaches on teams that are working with role players being like, if they could just get more consistency, know what their minutes are, know if they're going to play every single night, they play so much better. But that's obviously not how it works in the NBA. And Troy is like kind of like a testament to how, because I felt like he faded away until he got back to the Lakers, and there's your Lakers bump right there. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, everyone's like, oh yeah, Troy Brown is
Right.
like a legit rotation player, but he faded from the league for a while, where I wasn't even sure if he was going to stick around, and now he's signing a new deal with Minnesota, and looks like he's bought himself some more longevity.
Yeah, but that even kind of plays into the narrative as well, where it was 3 teams, 3 different time zones through his first 5 seasons. Now going back to the Midwest, but going to be a 4th team in 6 years.
And they're probably going to make him play
And
center or something like that. Who
yeah,
knows?
he's gonna. Well, not on that team. He's gonna end up being the point guard next to like 4 centers.
It'll be the fifth string
uh,
center too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no. So yeah, that one, it was a struggle to find an opening scene. I will say that quickly. Of that, shout out to my editor, Mike Prada. Like, we went through so many opening scenes for that story. Like, definitely the most I've had an opening scene change. Like normally it's either like the first or second draft, we kind of have the opening scene, and then it's just about tweaking the middle, maybe moving some sections around, obviously line editing and stuff. But this was one where it was like, how do we want to introduce this concept of Troy being on the ball, Troy being a creator? Because honestly, there weren't many examples of it. But I remember this pass that he had in OKC, and I was like, how do we incorporate this scene into the story? And ultimately, the audio of the Thunder play-by-play guy talking about it and kind of being surprised by it was kind of the thing that kicked it off. Because then I talked to Troy of like, a lot of people don't realize how good of a passer you are. Like, how do you feel about that? And then he kind of goes off on, well, people are always surprised when I can pass, but like da 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 da, and like
Such as
it just
Darvin Ham.
to me it kind of set, yeah, it just started, it just kind of set the tone for the story and kind of got us into the meat of it.
All right. Well, that's the end of the podcast. He's Jovan Buha. He covers the Lakers for The Athletic. He does a pretty damn good job with it. Andrew Schlecht is our producer. I'm Jared Weiss. We will see you next time on The Ding. And I got to say ding ding.
Ding ding.